So we're continuing yesterday's Divrei Torah, and yesterday we learned about the Sfarim of Gdolei Israel, of the 1800s, the 1900s, that wrote that Am Yisrael have an obligation to go to Eretz Israel and build the land. But there's a chidush, there's a twist over here that many people don't know. It's very important to understand exactly what it is. So we are accustomed to know that we want Mashiach to come right away. We want Mashiach now. It should be right away. Pitom yavo Adon elechalo, says the Navi. Which means we live through the Galut and we yearn and hope and believe that the Mashiach could come any second. But is that really true? Is that really the way the procedure is? The way HaKadosh Baruch Hu has the plan for Mashiach to come? Is that the way it should be? Right away. There are Gemarot, and there is a Zohar, and there are many Mefarshim that explain that it doesn't work like that. The Gemara says that it works in steps. Kim'ah, kim'ah. Which means Mashiach doesn't come in an instant. Rather, there's a process. There's steps that you have to go in order to reach to the time that Mashiach could come. And which means Am Yisrael, from the darkest Galut, can't reach Mashiach in an instant. Rather, they have to slowly elevate themselves until they are greater and greater, more successful, more elevated, more independent. It's like the word independent became taboo. More independent, and when Am Yisrael are flourishing and they're very successful, that's when Mashiach could come. Who says that? Let's see what the Zohar says. The Zohar says the following. The Zohar in Parashat Vayishlach, on the pasuk, Mizot anishkafa kemo shachar. Yafa kalvana baraka chama ayuma kanigdalot. That pasuk is talking about Am Yisrael. Aikra ukumua v'itmar. Aval mizot anishkafa. Mizot, says the Zohar, inun Israel. That's Am Yisrael. Bezimna dekudsha brichu. Yokimlon ve'afiklon min galuta. When Am Kadosh Baruch Hu is ready and prepared to take Am Yisrael out of the galut, out of the exile, kedei niftach lon pitcha de neora dakik zair. First he opens for them a small window, a small crack. In Galut, it's totally dark. There's no light in Galut. Am Yisrael went through prosecutions, through killings, through torturing, complete dark. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu opens a small crack of light. You see a dim light coming through it, says the Zohar. Ulebatar, afterwards, pitcha achrina, diurav mineh. Afterwards, a little bit larger opening. Then you see a little bit more light. Adekudsha brichu iftach lon tar'ini lain, until HaKadosh Baruch Hu opens for them complete door or window, ptichan le'arba ruchei alma, from four sides of the world. וכל מה דוד קודשא בריחו לישראל צדיקאי דיברו אך יקולו ולאו בזמנה חדה. It doesn't happen instant. It happens in steps, slowly. The Zohar continues and says, mashal to a person, just like we explained right now. The Zohar says that it's a mashal to a person that's sitting in the dark, and slowly, you don't want to right away take him to the light, because if you take him right away to the light, he'll get blind. He sits in a dark cell for many years. All of a sudden you open him to the sun, he gets blind instantly. Rather, you need to do it slowly. That's what the Zohar says. So that's an important concept that we need to know. And this is what the Gemara says. The Gemara in Yerushalmi, actually the Yerushalmi opens up brachot with such a Gemara. It's right away in the beginning of the Shas by the Yerushalmi. And the Yerushalmi says the following story. Rab Chia Rabba ורב שמעון בר חלפתא היו מהלכים בעד בקעת ארבל. They were walking in a certain valley. And it was Bekritzta, which means Be'alot HaShachar. It was in the earliest of the morning. וראו איילת השחר שבקע אורה. I have shiurim that I explain how the day starts. Ayelet HaShachar means that's a very beginning of the ray of light that you see in the night, which means the night the Mefarshim explain, right before the day starts, it's the darkest time from the night. When is it the darkest time? Right before the light comes out. And then you see two dim lights, like beam of lights, very, very dim, coming out. That's called Ayelet HaShachar. So that's what they saw. אמר רב חייא רבא לרב שמעון בר חלפתא ברבי כך היא גאולתן של ישראל. This is how the גאולה, this is how the exile will end. בתחילה קמעה קמעה, it's slowly. כל מה שהיא הולכת, היא רבה והולכת, which means it becomes more and more. Slowly, the גאולה will become more enlightened to Am Yisrael, more smiling to Am Yisrael, more Am Yisrael would be more successful, more in every aspect, economy, in security. Am Yisrael never had security throughout Galut. Now they will have in every aspect. But not only that, we see something fascinating in front of our eyes, that within few short years, in relation to history of 2,000 years, within few decades, Am Yisrael became not only independent, but became a world power. That's interesting. That's very interesting. That's what it says over here. My Tama, says the Gemara, where do we learn this from? In the beginning, when it's completely dark, we only have the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that we learn from Megillat Esther. In the beginning, says the Gemara, Mordechai Yoshev B'Sha'ar HaMelech. The very, very beginning of, you see a dim of light, something that could be hopefully good. Mordechai sits in the gate of the king. That's a good sign. Something might happen. Then, ויקח המן את הלבוש ואת הסוס. All of a sudden, something better happens. ואחר כך, ומרדכי יוצא בשער המלך בלבוש מלכות. All of a sudden, Mordechai becomes royally. ואחר כך ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה. This is how the גאולה of Am Yisrael happens. So you see from the Zohar, you see from the Gemara, the Malbim brings like this in Micha, in the Navi Micha, Daled, Chet, he says like this. There are 3 steps, says the Malbim. The Pasuk says, Batzion adayich te'ete. What is that? שהגלויות התחילו להתקבץ. First, the galuyot will come to Am Yisrael. That's something that when the Malbim wrote 250 years ago, seemed like, how could that be? Nobody would be in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael would be completely deserted. Then afterwards, כשבאת הממשלה הראשונה, says the pasuk, continues the pasuk, תבוא ממשלה קטנה, there will be a small ממשלה, שיהיה לה קצת ממשלה והנהגה כמו שהיו לישראל בימים הראשונים. They will have a little bit of government. So that could be our time right now. It's a small government that becomes slowly stronger and better. And finally, says the Malbim, אחר כך תבוא ממלכה לבת ירושלים. That's the pasuk. The pasuk says, בת ציון עדיך תתה, ובת הממשלה הראשונה, ואחר כך תבוא ממלכה לבת ירושלים. What does that mean? זאת שיהיה להם מלכות קבוע שהוא מלכות בית דוד, שאחר כך ימלוך המלך המשיח בממלכה קבועה. וכן יתבהר בחזקאל ובעמוס שמלכות בית דוד תתגלה בהדרגה. It will happen. Mashiach will come in steps. It's not going to happen instantly. The גאולה is not going to happen instantly. ויתעלה לאט לאט עד שיהיה להשם המלוכה. Now you have to realize there's also something else that people don't know. That is something called גאולה and something that, and another terminology called Mashiach, which are 2 different things. גאולה has to come before Mashiach. The Sfarim that I mentioned yesterday, Rabbi Tachtal writes, he was killed in the Holocaust, I told you yesterday. He writes that somebody that thinks that Mashiach will come before the Geulah, or the Geulah comes with Mashiach, is somebody that thinks that the day will start before the night. It doesn't happen like that. There's a procedure of how things happen. There's a process. First is the night, then slowly you have a little bit more light until it's completely, the sun shines. That's the way it is. So what does it say when it says in the Psukim? It says, Pitom yavo adon elechalo. The Gemara says that when they ask when Mashiach will come, so the answer was Hayom. Hayom, today. The day passed, it didn't come. No, Hayom im bekolot ishma, which means it could come today. It could come today. So what does that mean? If it could come in steps, it doesn't come instantly. It comes in steps. What does it mean when the pasuk says that pitom, right away, suddenly? What does that mean? So he explains in Sefer Em Banim Semecha that we know the concept that there's two types of geulot that could happen. One is beito, and one is achishena. One is beito, beita, which means if HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that Am Yisrael don't do teshuvah, they're not on the right path, eventually the geula will come regardless. And one is achishena, all of the sudden, pitom, suddenly. When is suddenly? If Am Yisrael goes in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and everything, all the stars are set in the right place, so to speak, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes instantly. Pitom yavo Adon elecha lo. Then it's hayom im bekolot tishmau. But that's only a case that Am Yisrael in such a high elevated place. But if they're not like that, eventually the world would come to an end. And when the world comes to an end, there is a certain way of how things will come and continue and progress. And this is what we see in front of our eyes right now. It's progressing, and it's actually rapidly. It's very, very quick. Although it goes in steps, although it goes by one thing at a time, as we explained right now, but eventually it's going to end. And this is happening really in if you take a look at a prospect of the whole exile, it is very, very rapid. It is very, very quick that's happening. That's what we're learning over here, that when the time comes, eventually things will progress, but progress quickly. And that's what the Gemara in Tanchuma says, that the mashal is to ayal, that a deer that jumps, but he jumps one step at a time. When you want to reach someplace, he takes one step at a time. It doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't go from one place to another without running there. He needs to run to get there. But when he runs there and he takes those steps to go towards his goal, he does this very, very quickly. So there is a certain move that Am Yisrael has to move and has to go through, but it doesn't happen quickly. So therefore, when we sing, we want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now could be is a good when Am Yisrael are in the stand of being tzaddikim gmurim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send the Geula and the Mashiach right away. Pitom yavo Adon. But when it's not like that, when Am Yisrael are not in that darga, in that elevated place, then it's not Mashiach now. It happens slowly, although, again, it's rapidly, it's quickly with relation to the way it should be. But still, things are happening, and they're happening, and we see that things that we never dreamt of are constantly happening, and things are getting better and better for Am Yisrael, and this is what the Sfarim bring down. It was worth learning and knowing that concept. Thank you.